Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today we're going to be doing some really simple watercolouring, but we're also going to be creating our own sparkly watercolours. To start with, I'm using the Paint a Flower Rose Floribunda, and I'm going to be stamping this onto a piece of watercolour cardstock. So it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. As we're going to be heat embossing this, I have added some anti-static powder to the panel before I get to work. I've then taken the large image from the stamp set, I've placed this onto a large block, and then I'm going to ink that up using some of the embossing ink from Altenew, and then I'm going to cover this using some of the beautiful platinum embossing powder. So I'm just going to tap off the excess before I do heat set that. Now, if you do get pieces of straight embossing powder where you don't want them, the trick is to get a dry paintbrush and just kind of remove that excess before you do heat emboss it. I'm then going to keep going with stamping this image all over this panel. So it's kind of like a jigsaw that we're creating here. So I'm just going to stamp that onto the other corner, kind of following the flow of the image, kind of slotting them into each other. Once I'm happy with that, I have then added the embossing powder on again, so the platinum embossing powder, and then heat set. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I have my whole panel completed. Remember to go off the edges and add little bits of the image onto the areas that you feel need a little bit more around the outside edge. So it's kind of like a jigsaw, like I said, just filling in those little spaces with the extra parts of the same image. Just keeping going, just embossing the image using the platinum embossing powder to give that really beautiful shine through the outline. This is also going to help us with our watercoloring because it is going to create kind of a little barrier for the water to kind of sit within so it doesn't go everywhere that we don't want it to. So once I'm happy with that, I'm then going to create the sparkly watercolor. So I'm going to be using the Iridescent spray from Altenew. I have shaken this, and then I'm going to add that into a little bowl. For the flowers, I'm going to be using Rubelite and also the Ruby Red markers from Altenew. So these are the brush markers, and they do have a brush on there, so you can definitely get straight into that image and color it in. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add these two colors where I think it's going to be the darkest on my image. I'm not paying too much attention. I'm just kind of scribbling in where I think that it is going to be the darkest. And I'm then going to use that iridescent spray kind of like my water. So I do water it down a little bit, but I'm also using that spray that we have there to manipulate the colors around the image. So once I have finished with one of the flowers, I can then move on to the next one. You can see just how kind of haphazardly I'm popping those two red colors down onto the image. I'm not really paying too much attention, just getting that color down and then moving it around with that shimmery spray that we have. I'm using one of the paintbrushes from Altenew. I do find that these are really good paintbrushes and I do like using them. So once I've finished with the flowers, I'm then going to move on to the leaves. For these, I'm going to be using the emerald and the moss. So I'm using the moss in the darkest part where I think it would be, so right at the base. And I'm then going to add some of the emerald further up the leaf. And I'm then going to pull that colour out using the shimmery, sparkly water that we have with the iridescent spray. So once I have finished with the leaves, I can then move on to the background. Now for the background, I'm adding the dusk onto my little palette that I have over to the side. And I'm just kind of mixing that in with the iridescent spray to give us this really dark blue, beautiful, sparkly watercolor that I'm then going to add to the background of the flowers. So once the panel is completed, I've just moved that over to the side to dry, and I'm then going to work on the sentiment. So I have the Bold Thanks die, and I'm going to be cutting this out of some sparkly glitter cardstock and some vellum, and also I have a piece of navy cardstock here. Now before I do die cut these, I wanted to add some double-sided adhesive to the back of them. This is going to create kind of a sticker when you do die cut the sentiment out of them, so you don't even need to worry about the adhesive later on. So I'm just going to trim around these pieces, and now we have created our little sticker cardstocks. I'm then going to add the one that says thanks, the proper sentiment one onto the gold glitter that we have here. I am using my metal shim to run that through my die cutting machine, so it does cut that really beautiful glitter cardstock perfectly. So once I've done with that one, I'm then going to move on to the vellum piece. Now this does have double-sided adhesive on the back of it, and I'm going to cut that with the kind of the shadow of the thanks for that one. I'm then going to take the navy cardstock that I have, and this is what we're going to create the little bit of dimension with our sentiment with. And I'm going to cut the thanks sentiment, so this is the one that says thanks, in the little pieces, and I'm going to cut that a further 3 times out of the navy that we do have the double-sided adhesive on. Once that's done, I can then go ahead and pop all of my pieces together. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to remove the backing off the letters and then stick them one on top of each other. So these are the navy ones, and then add the gold one on top. So we're going to have the navy showing down the outside edge of the thanks sentiment, but then the thanks is going to be in glitter cardstock itself. So once I have all of those little pieces done, I can then go ahead and add those little letters onto the shadow piece that we have, which was cut out of the vellum. So I'm just going to pop these in place. You could use a little pokey tool like I have here. I do use a hat pin, or you could also use the little tweezers to kind of get these in place. It will leave a little bit of an outside edge on the vellum, just poking through behind that beautiful glittery sentiment of thanks that we do have. So once I have finished with that, I then decided that I wanted to kind of cut down my panel. So I'm just going to cut off 1/4 inch off the bottom and also off one of the sides. This is going to mean when we do pop this onto our white card base, it is going to leave a little bit of a white edge around the outside, just to kind of focus in on that beautiful pattern that we have on the background. I'm just going to add a little bit of dimension by adding some foam tape before I do pop that panel onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base. I just need to remove the backing off our little thanks sentiment and then pop this into place. And I just love how beautiful that looks just about there. So here is our card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video as well. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share, because we'd love to see. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and we really do hope that you have a great weekend. See you again soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, crafty friend. Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques, and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.